like in the commercial world, the smartphone has really changed the world a little bit and has put a lot of information at our fingertips as citizens, and our desire to engage in more real time as opposed to less than real time historic government interactions. It used to be very, and it's still to some degrees, lots of forms you have to fill out to get your taxes squared away, to get citizenship, to participate in certain research, say in the health field. But with the ubiquity of a smartphone and the ability to be connected anytime, anywhere, what used to be a 9 to 5 type of operation has become a 24/7 operation, and the expectations of the end user or the citizen has risen significantly because of that. And that's what's driving the government to interact more and to become digital, and to meet the needs of try to meet the needs of their citizens and the missions they serve. Sapient has figured out, and the government has figured out a long time ago, that technology and user experience have to work together and in concert. Once upon a time, earlier in my technology career, technology was the answer, and the user experience was an afterthought. Now, user experience is in the forefront, and technology is there to support it. So, Sapient's special sauce has always been to bring those two together, and we figured it out fairly early in the process, and we're able to translate it in the commercial space and bring it to the government, so that we're not just building applications for the sake of building applications, but we're building them to meet the needs of the individual that actually needs those services. There's a give and take relationship with government and citizen engagement. The government has a plethora of data that they're collecting on a regular basis, and they're usually collecting more as we engage with them. But what needs to happen is how do the government leverage that data to provide services in a proactive way? And what I mean by that is this. There are points in the citizen lifespan where there are certain needs, and I'm going to use getting married as an example. I'm about to get married. What do I need to do that? Well, there's an engagement at the local level, the county level, to get a license in the United States to get married, and then that's the interaction that happens in a silo. That information isn't used broadly to say, well, wait, what's the next step in that journey? There is tax implications, right, both at the state and the federal level. There are potential housing needs down the road. Well, what do we need? How can the government help bring that information right to the front, so that engagement starts a relationship? And I think that's the challenge for the government, is that they're so mission focused at the state, local, and federal, even each individual federal agency that provides a service. They're so siloed in their approach that it makes it very hard to bring all of it together in one place, so that they can engage in a proactive way and develop relationships, because ultimately digital experience is about relationship building. And I think that's the end goal, but it's awfully hard to overcome some of the hurdles and the silos that are in place today. So when our clients come to us and say we would like a mobile app, or we want to redesign our website, or the first thing we ask is, well, what are you really trying to accomplish, right? It's the technology is the easy part in the grand scheme of things, but it's what services are you truly trying to provide? What story are you trying to tell? What kind of engagement are you trying to build with your citizens and that you serve? That way we can start to understand the requirements from an end user perspective and build a system ultimately based on requirements that come from those end users. And that's done through a variety of means. We have primary research, we'll do ethnographic research, we'll talk to the end users, we'll watch their day, right? And if it's citizen-centric or internally centric, we're still spending time to understand how people interact with the data and the information that they require, and how they interact with the agency at a very granular level, at a very user-centric level. Once we understand that, we can start to glean real requirements about what people are looking for. And sometimes the assumptions that have been made for years by the government agencies are wrong. And we're able to document them and then build a system based on requirements that actually meet the needs of the citizen. And ultimately the citizen's happier, the clients are happier, and ultimately we're successful. There's a little bit upfront work to do that, but doing all that upfront work and requirement gathering allows us to build a system that'll meet the needs not of just today, but moving forward, because it's a much more scalable model. I think that the federal government has to serve a much broader audience, and has to take that into consideration as they're getting into the finer details of what platforms they want to develop to meet those needs. I think cities and localities have a smaller constituency, for lack of a better word, and can be far more focused in those services and their ability to change the way they go about things, from smart city initiatives to just more interaction with their citizens. The good news is everyone's talking about it at all three levels. The challenge will be is how do we tell that comprehensive story that brings all three of those entities together, that really allows the citizen to engage with the government in a way that really hasn't happened just yet, because they all influence each other back and forth through the life cycle of an individual and of a citizen, and that's where the opportunity lies. Easier said than done, but it's the challenge that's upon us, and if it starts at the localities, more power to them. The federal agencies can learn from that as well, but I think the federal has a great opportunity because there is more engagement with the federal agencies and the services they provide than there's ever been before, and there's a lot of momentum to take advantage of right now, because government as a platform is really starting to take off. We're in the early stages, but we're getting to a point where the 18F technologists of the world are coming in from all over to provide expertise, right? And the good news is about that expertise is to be innovative. Sometimes you have to have people change, and you're starting to see that. The old model, the DARPA model and the NASA model of private-public partnerships. 18F's trying to accomplish that now, doing very similar things for more citizen-centric services as opposed to sending people to the moon or developing the internet, or ARPANET. So it's a fantastic time to be in government. It's a little slower than I think a lot of people would prefer, but at least we're heading in the right direction. A huge amount of emphasis put into cloud first, mobile first type technologies and the use of them. The government and NIST have put a lot of time and effort into FedRAMP, into standardizing the way we apply security and processes within the clouds themselves, and how we get them certified for use across the government, so that one agency has a requirement, they put the cloud service provider through that FedRAMP process. Once it's done, all government agencies can take advantage of it. So there's a cost savings there, but there's also the quick ability to leverage that existing certification to build services on top of. It allows for quicker stand-up of platforms, right? Be it infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, depending on the need of the organization and the agency, they're able to quickly go to market with a service much faster than historically building it themselves and going through that process individually. So it's definitely a kickstart. I don't think it's the end-all be-all. I also think it depends on the mission of the organization. Certain missions, be it in the intelligence space or the Department of Defense, they're going to build their own clouds that will have to follow similar standards, but for security reasons, obviously they want to have a little more control over their own environments. Whereas more citizen-centric engagement, you're starting to see both the use of private cloud, hybrid cloud, and public clouds, government-centric, right? And Amazon has them, and Microsoft has them, and plenty of other vendors that are out there are now certified via FedRAMP. But that was the first great step. It was coming up with a common definition. It was coming up with a common set of standards, and then it was certifying those and allowing agencies to take advantage of one certification as opposed to each agency certifying a cloud service provider like things have been done in the past. So that's great efficiency and great opportunity for those building citizen-centric services on top of them.
My final question for you really is in terms of the future. We're seeing with Generation Y, digital natives. The kids assume that there's an app for that. But also the whole idea of citizen activism and social media really creating these activist movements, which in turn are influencing and having an effect on government. Do you think that's going to ripple through into government services? That we're going to see a different breed of government services as a result of all of that citizen activism? I would hope so. I've seen some of it. So I think federal government was quick to adopt social platforms and to start the interaction and the conversations, that I like to call them, through back and forth. And there are plenty of folks that have from the Generation Y that have gone into government work because they feel that passionate about making citizens services that much better, that much stronger, and that much more user-centric when it's all said and done.
the challenges, the pace at which the government moves as compared to the commercial space is significantly slower still. That's something we have to overcome. We've made huge strides in doing so, but it's still, there's some work to do. Therefore, we have to continue down this path, find ways to be more efficient. Potentially, I'm looking at 18F and the RFP process, and they're doing hackathons as a quick way to pick and select vendors to do certain very specific work. That is a complete fundamental shift from the way things have been done, where the RFP process was a very long, write a long paper in response to the requirements in an RFP that, quite frankly, aren't detailed enough anyway to actually build the system, yet you have to answer it like it is. And that's a challenge for any organization that's doing work with the government, because ultimately you just want to get a seat at the table so you can have the right conversations ahead of time before anything gets built, so we can actually gather the requirements of the end users like we talked about earlier, understand their needs, and build a system that will actually meet them not only today but tomorrow and into the future.